the most impacting books that I've ever read in my life, besides the Bible, is one that you've heard me talk about often. It's called Wisdom Keys by Mike Murdock. And I really thank God for the wisdom that God has given him. And some of the quotes that I like to quote that you're well familiar with, probably the one you're most familiar with is, we'll always move in the direction of our most dominant thought. Well, that was one of Mike's wisdom keys. It's just a little bitty book, little bitty paperback book. I believe that I got at Salvation Army or Marva. I just saw it used there. I didn't know anything about Mike, didn't know anything about the book. But I think that's where I got it years ago. And he doesn't expound much on anything. He just basically gives some just keys, just statements. Today I'd like to talk about one of his wisdom keys. It's called the Law of Honor. The Law of Honor. And I want to expound upon that wisdom key today because it's something that is very much needed, not only in our society, but also in the church. Your future will be determined by who you choose to honor. And if you fail in your life, it will be because of someone you chose to dishonor. That's the truth when you think about it. David was talking in his sermonette about how words are seeds. Jesus Christ is called the Word. In Matthew chapter 13, he identifies himself as the Word being the seed of God that is planted. The words that we speak are seeds that are planted that will produce a harvest in our life. And whatever we sow, we're going to reap. Also, that means what we speak. Amen. And when you think about it, listening like you are right now is a seed, because I'm sowing a word. Listening is a seed that produces knowledge. Knowledge is a seed that produces change in your life. The gospel of Jesus Christ is a seed that produces salvation. Battle is a seed for conquered territory. And honor is a seed for access. Honor produces access. And brethren, you and I, we're told that bad company corrupts good morals. We're supposed to examine who we hang out with, who our friends are, who we associate and confide in. Now, how long do you think it takes to learn to know somebody? If you're going to try to examine their character, wait till they go through some type of trial. Wait till, some situation comes up to where it really reveals their character. To see whether they'll throw you under the bus or not. You see whether they're a real friend or not. You don't have to wait. Oh no, you don't have to wait at all. All you have to do is examine their character by looking to see who they choose to honor and who they choose to dishonor. Simply put, anyone that chooses to dishonor authority, anyone that chooses to dishonor church leaders, anyone who chooses to dishonor their parents, anyone that chooses to dishonor God, there'll be no blessing. See, when you choose dishonor, you are denied access to the blessings of God. Matter of fact, brethren, you're denied access to God. You don't have access to God. If you choose to dishonor whom God has specifically commanded you to honor, God departs from you. Now that's a fact. That's the Bible. Numbers chapter 12 says that. We'll probably read that. If you want to, you can go ahead and turn there. We will read it. Because that's the account where Miriam and Aaron dishonored Moses because he married a black woman. And they dishonored him. How did they dishonor him? They spoke against him. They murmured against him. And to God that was murmuring against him, what did God say? Moses, they're against me, not you. Oh, they're saying your name, but I'm the one that placed you in the position you're in. You're holding my office. And when they speak against you, they're speaking against an office that I have ordained. So they're speaking against me. Dishonor is also a seed. It's a seed for loss. You're going to lose. You'll lose access to God. You lose access to His blessings. Honor is a seed for tragedy. Dishonor is a seed for tragedy. Dishonor is also a seed for death. And that's the truth. Because where there's dishonor, there's curse. And where there's a curse, there is anathema. That's just a Greek word that means worthy of death. So let's turn over to Numbers chapter 12. When we listen, we learn. Conversation is a seed for knowledge. Knowledge is a seed for change. Forgiveness is a seed for relationship. Before we can have a relationship with God, God has to first forgive us. And He paid a high price in order to do that. Before you can restore a relationship with someone else, you have to be willing to forgive them. And you have to seek forgiveness if you need to be forgiven. Forgiveness is a seed for relationship. Gospel is a seed for salvation. Honor is a seed for access. And hear this, yielded adaptation is the proof of honor. What does that mean? It means when you're willing to yield and adapt your attitude, your behavior toward another whom you are to honor, that's the proof that you're honoring them. In other words, there is action involved. When Joseph was to go before the Pharaoh, it was a custom of the Israelites, if you're a man, to wear a beard. But that was detestable to the Egyptians. They hated beards. Now, Pharaoh was a pagan king. Pharaoh actually was in the image of Satan. He was holding the children of Israel in bondage. You know, we're talking about the office of Pharaoh. Of course, when Joseph was there, they weren't in bondage yet. But still, the office was the office of like Antichrist. But Joseph honored that office. And brethren, you and I have to honor offices too. We have to honor the offices, and we have to be careful not to dishonor the offices, because all authority comes from God. That's what Paul said in Romans chapter 13. And whoever resists authority resists the ordinance of God. That's what Paul said to the church. But when Joseph, he could have thought, well, that's a pagan king. What do I care about what he thinks? But he did care about what he thought, because he knew that God had placed him in power. And so when it came time for him to be presented to the king, he said, to the king of Egypt, he said, the Egyptians think that, facial hair is like an abomination to them. So he shaved. That's yielded adaptation. And what did it eventually produce? It produced a great blessing. Matter of fact, he came to be second in power of all Egypt. The Pharaoh took his signet ring, the ring of power, and gave it to Joseph. To whatever Joseph bound in Egypt was bound.